The following is rated S for spoilers.
Were you killed in the Battle of the Everhorse?
Yes.
Great. I mean, not for you. Sorry for your loss.
Hello and welcome to the Popcorn Hangover. My name is Alex.
My name is Graham.
And today we are going to be discussing Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, directed by duo John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein, who also wrote the screenplay with help from Michael Gillio, who also helped write the story along with Chris McKay. A lot of crazy writing credits here. Starring a whole slew of people, including Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Justice Smith, and Sophia Lillis, playing the main party. I feel like those are the ones we should mention off the top. Not necessarily billed that way, but yeah, it is what it is. Releasing March 31st of 2023 with an estimated budget of $151 million and an abysmal opening weekend estimate of $38.5 million domestically, $71.5 worldwide. Graham, how you doing this week?
I'm doing good. Good. I didn't know those numbers.
Yeah, I was looking at your face like...
That's kind of a bummer. I really thought this would... I mean, honestly, it's not as bad as I thought it'd be, but...
Sure.
I was hoping it would do better.
The reception is also interesting. So Rotten Tomatoes, we have a 90% critic score and a 93% audience score. But then IMDb, we have a 7.6 and Letterboxd has a 3.7 out of 5, which if you break those down to be similar, that's basically like a 74% for each of them. Yeah. So I don't know.
I'm surprised
it seems
as much
mostly positive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, it's not coming out against much else. I mean, that this weekend, I don't think
this
else,
is really the only thing it's competing against is itself.
Dang.
John Wick is most definitely going to beat it, though.
Yeah.
By a landslide.
When I was in line getting tickets, like 4 of the people in line went to see John Wick.
Oh, really?
So I was like, that's tough. Yeah.
I mean, I was in line like 5 minutes before you, and there was someone who went and bought 6 tickets for him and all of his friends. They definitely seemed like the D&D kind of crowd. They were pumped for D&D. Let me tell you, I was like, I'll see the D&D movie, but like these guys were like, I can't wait for them to like do like this spell, like they do this thing, and I was like.
See, I don't have that knowledge. I don't, but I have played D&D, and I really do enjoy playing D&D. It is fun, and with I don't have like extensive knowledge, like as far as most people do, especially most of the audience did. But I was like I've been really excited for this movie, and I feel like it held up. I feel like people, especially the fans that are hardcore fans, could go into this movie and have no problems with it. Sure. Like honestly, like I feel like it catered, like didn't like cater to the fan base, but like it gave them everything they were hoping for in like the best way possible.
I think a review that I saw that I liked was this. One of the things that this movie did really, really well was it did a really good job at emphasizing the ridiculousness of playing D&D and the ridiculous things that happen while you're playing. And I thought they did that really well. Yeah. Me personally, I think I played one session of D&D with you and a bunch of people who are like really, really into it, and I was so lost from the start.
That's the thing is like, especially when you play the game, like I do like how, not like carefree, but really like how the jokes played in and how it was like, it did just pick up on how random and ridiculous some of the stuff was. But like when you play that game, it totally depends on who you're playing with. Right. Because like for me, I'm not a very imaginative guy. I don't even know if that's the word that I'm trying to use.
I think it'd
like,
be imaginative.
Imaginative. Yeah. Like I don't play that well, like in certain games and things like that. Like I need like a physical game or like physical board game or something, like the story to go with it. But yeah, some people are crazy. They go hard with this game.
I mean, I've always wanted to play it.
Yeah.
I've soft committed to playing a campaign this summer, but
hey,
we'll see what happens.
Who knows?
I don't know. Let's actually get into our
I was gonna
say. Graham, what did you think of D&D Honor Among Thieves?
I really did enjoy it. Like I said, I'm kind of sad with with like how well it's done. It hasn't done as well as I hoped it was. Like I've been very, very excited for this. With the movie itself, I enjoyed it. It was really funny. I was laughing like the whole time. I really enjoyed
a good old time.
I was. The cast was perfect. I think everyone did really well with each other. Everyone played off of each other like perfectly. the story was like honestly not that bad. I've heard from a few friends and like family that did see the movie a few days ago, like right as it came out, is they were like, it's so like fast paced. Like they felt like the movie like went through in like a minute, and they were like, it could have been easily 3-4 hours and they wouldn't have known. That's kind of how it felt for me, because I was really like, dude, I was into the movie. I was fully like enthralled with everything going on. So no, I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was like, if I were to rate it, I'd be like a 4 out of 5 stars probably, if I rated it that way. But also like normally, would I watch this again? Absolutely. I would pay to go see this again. I would pay probably the first time then if I did, but don't worry. But yeah, no, it was, it was great. I would recommend it to anyone asking.
Yeah. I don't have as high of a review as you. I mean, it was fine. I enjoyed myself. It was a fun ride. The pacing thing, I guess it was paced well for what it was. But it kept going. Like I kept like, okay, cool, they're gonna get the thing, they're gonna do the thing, and it's all gonna be done. But wait, there's more. And then it's like, okay, cool, we got this done. But wait, there's more. And it just kept going. And I was like, does this need to be 2 hours and 14 minutes?
See, I was wondering, like, how do they end the story? Does he bring his wife back? And then a part of me was like, oh, like he's not gonna like.
I knew right away one of them are gonna die.
Right.
It was extremely predictable.
But I knew immediately. Did you pick up like when he was like telling the backstory? He's like, I already know. And he's like, but do you need to know this? He's like, it's in this book. Like you should know. And they were doing the backstory of the Red Wizards and like the soul sucking like Army of the Dead or whatever, when they gave like a little flashback kind of story time. And I was like, dude, that's what she's gonna do. Like picked up on that.
Yeah, it was very predictable.
Yeah.
Overall it was fine. I think my biggest thing was like, this just wasn't my kind of humor. I think I laughed more at things that weren't supposed to be funny. For example, I thought it was the funniest thing in the world how there's this whole thing where they have like the balloon, like we're gonna drop the treasure from the balloon so all the people escape. You're telling me that none of these people saw an evil witch fly into the air with a bunch of evil-looking roots and then started shooting smoke, evil red smoke everywhere, and they're just going to sit in their seats?
I know, and they saw the money trail as it was like leaving above them.
Yeah, like tiny gold coins. They're like, I think that's money. And then they all got out of there in like 2 seconds flat.
I mean, I would. I'm sorry. If I saw any treasure or money, dude, I'm gone.
Sure. But like, why was that what made them leave? Why was it, were they just going to sit there and watch the evil? I don't know. I thought that was hilarious, but no one else was laughing with me, so I felt a little awkward.
Which in our theater was pretty empty, but there were a few laughs. Like I laughed at everything going on, which I don't know if it. I don't know.
That's not bad.
No, it's not bad.
I envy it. It's always fun to like have fun with movies and things. And this was a fun movie. I'd recommend it if.
Definitely.
If you watch a trailer and you think it's even slightly interesting. Just not for me.
Not for you.
Yeah, not my kind of thing. One of the things I was trying to figure out through the movie was what like age range this is for. And this was a question I wanted to ask you, because I feel like a lot of like there were two like little girls sitting in front of us and they were having a good old time.
Yeah, they loved it. They were vibing.
There were a couple of like language moments, maybe one in particular I can think of.
There's quite a bit of language.
There were some jump scares in it, some scary looking things, like just kind of gruesome almost looking things. Is it, would you like take a bunch of kids to like, would you call this is this a kid-centered movie?
Definitely not kid-centered. I mean it,
because the two girls in front of us were having a good old time like the entire time.
But I think, I mean, really,
there were some things I was like, how are you not going to have nightmares about this tonight? Because I feel like,
dude, I would at that age.
I feel like I would. Yeah,
no, I would not be doing well. I mean, yeah, it's definitely not kid-centered. I think they did their best to make it relatively family friendly in some aspects, because like when you do see a movie like this, like especially with the trailers, dude, it really is just a fun, happy, good time. It seems like a movie, and for the most part it really is, but there are some like really dark tones and like eerie kind of moments in there with alongside a few jump scares, which I just thought were great. But yeah, I mean, the age range is going to range from kind of like I said, with those fans that have played D&Ds for years that are pushing 20s to 50 years old, and then you're also going to have some kids in the mix. So yeah, I mean, I would just the language was a little heavy, but other than that, I mean, I think you could mark this as like a family-ish movie. Yeah.
Sure. So as someone who's played D&D a little bit, how did you like how they handled telling, like, adapting this game into like a film format? Because obviously it's very different.
Yeah, and then that's what I was really worried about that, because I was like, with the game, obviously you have dice. It's a big game of, I'm gonna do this. Okay, roll a dice. Depending on that number, you win or you lose. It's one or the other, kind of like you succeed or you fail, whatever it is. And so like I was like, how are they gonna make a game, a movie? But they really just used the world. Like it was just there's so many characters, there's so many creatures. There's all these quests and side stuff, and like you can just run with whatever you want. It doesn't have to be a game. And so that's what I really enjoyed, is it wasn't a game. It was literally just a story set in a world that also has a game based around it. It's kind of how I saw it. So I really enjoyed it. And like the story with it, like I said, it was a fun story. I liked it. And it seemed like one of those where it's like a quest, and like halfway through, like the paladin character is like, he's like, this is your quest. And he's like, I'm going to go back. And at that point, he's just like, I'm doing my own story, like you do yours. And so I was like, yeah, that's kind of like everyone really just doing their own thing. Like it's just its own little world. So I really liked how they didn't make it like an actual game.
Yeah.
It was a story in itself.
Yeah, that was the same thing. I think that was my biggest concern going into it, was like how they were going to do it. Because I just kept thinking of all the cliches that I was just for sure there. I thought, I saw it was a post-credit scene. And I was like, oh, they're definitely going to have a bunch of kids playing the game, dressed up as the characters.
If they did that, like, I think that would have been kind of
I think it would have been
dope.
It would have been fine. But I was just like, all right, this is gonna be like a really cliche, like a Lego movie kind of thing.
Dude, I just realized something that would have been actually such a dope idea. And imagine if they had. Did you know? So Joe Manganiello, the actor. He, as well as an actor, he's like a very heavy D&D player. That's all he does. Like his half of his house is set up as just a literal like dungeon, and he has an insane table that he plays on. But he literally invites like celebrities. People have never heard of it. People think it's been dumb. He'll just invite him to come over, and he plays. I just realized, imagine if they did have like a post-credit scene where it was just like his group just going hard on the game. That would be so dope.
I wonder. Cool. I was trying to see because I'm familiar. I mean, there's lots of big D&D groups and things.
Oh yeah.
I can't name all of them or know much about any of them, but like I heard there were cameos and things. Like, do you happen to know if there were like D&D people who were like, who were like the other people in the games, for example, like they looked like they had homemade costumes, like. And maybe that was the point.
I kind of noted on that, because one of the guys was in like a red and gold. I mean, it looked like a very just like cheap costume kind of style. And there are, with the D&D like player set, like you can buy like a player's handbook. You can buy obviously the characters that you play with. And there are like pre-painted, there's like a storyline that is like a beginner's game basically, where everything is basically dealt out for you. You just roll the dice.
Interesting.
And so with that though, there are like pre-built character sheets where this cleric is going to have this power, can do this and this and this, and so forth and so on. But also their costumes, or not costumes, but the clothes are like pre-painted in a certain fashion, and that's how they are depicted in the book and like on the cover and things like that. So
gotcha.
I didn't pay too much detail to that, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was like just the basic clothing from the game or from the book.
We're also like two of the least qualified people.
Yeah, I know.
Speculate.
Like that's what I was like. I'm such a big fan, but like, no, my knowledge for that wasn't. I didn't pick up on that, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
Yeah, so like I don't know. I feel like they did a really good job of adapting the game into a film format, like without making it obvious that it's being adapted from a game or anything like that. Which we'll talk about a little bit next segment. But like I like in general, just this is a very story based game,
heavily,
and I think the thing that's interesting with D&D in particular is like, for example, talking about these people who were really, really excited for the D&D movie, and they had all these hopes and things that they wanted to see happen.
Well, I almost dressed up.
Did you?
I'm just kidding. No. No.
It want to be the first time I almost dressed up for
I've dressed up before for a premiere.
Movie. I have a photo still in my camera roll. Maybe that'll flash on screen.
What are you talking? I hope not. Oh gosh. Is it Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Oh, tough. Okay. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Anyway, that was a random sidetrack. But like, for example, like for me, like I was really excited for The Last of Us to come out on HBO, and like I was like these people every single week.
Right.
But the difference is, I knew it was going to happen because I played The Last of Us a million different times,
right.
and at the end of the day, it's the exact same every time. So like, how do you feel about how they adapted the story specifically? Like, with D&D being so open-ended, like it can be literally anything.
Right.
Like, how did you feel about, like, it could have gone any direction. Is this like a normal kind of story? Like, are these normal places? Like, is this all original?
Yeah, no. So, I mean, all the places, which that was a fun thing too. Cause like I've played a few campaigns and like we did do like beginners, like the beginner campaign all the way through. And then like one other one, that like my brother-in-law led. But with the places in the book and like the map was all the same. So gotcha. Of course, now I can't think of anything. I literally have a picture.
There was Neverwinter. They said that a lot.
Yeah, Neverwinter. I mean, it's not really going to make sense unless like people have like seen the book or like played on a thing. But like for the most part, so yeah, the story did a really good job of keeping like anything that would have been like in a style of like lore. It kept that all accurate. But when it comes to like the actual like gameplay, I guess, or like the story breakdown, every campaign is different though. Because like some players go hard and they know every single step and breath that character takes and every amount of food and things they're carrying, like everything. Then you have some players that like the story is a little lighter and the book will do most of the telling for you. I love campaigns like that because again, I'm not super detailed and oriented when it comes to that stuff. But this just kind of felt like the book was guiding you through the story, like honestly. Right. And for like the beginner one, like it wasn't exact same stories because like most of the time like the characters don't have like families. You have like backstories of you were like a paladin.
That was the thing that I understood, but I did get annoying for me was we had to take 5 minutes to explain this person's backstory. And it was funny when it was Chris Pine. I was like, okay, I see what you're doing there. But then everyone was like, here's my backstory. And I was like,
that's campaign. So you have like night one when you're playing the game. Night one. It's nothing to do with the game. It is character creation. And people will do all that. And then the first like hour normally of like the first night of the campaign, the second night normally, or whatever, is people literally be like, here's my backstory. Here's the things I carry. Here's what I'm attuned to. Here's what my specialties are. Here's what level I am and what I've known so far. Like and like I said, you can go in depth and have like a 5-minute backstory, or you can just be like, I'm just on my own doing an adventure, taking whatever quest comes up.
Backstory?
That is always my backstory. Or someone else comes up with it and I'm writing it off a list. But yeah, no, I kind of like that, especially in the beginning when he was like, it all started back here. And I was like, yeah, that's like, that's part of it. Like, so no, that was well done.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like for me, at least, just looking at things very critically and everything has to be to a T because that's totally it's not art. There's a science to it. I mean, there is, but anyway. Anyway, like that was one of those things where I was just like, for me, I think that's why it didn't pace as well for me is because I'm not used. I mean, if you're going to do a D&D movie and you're kind of expecting, this is how it goes. You're like, I see what's going on. And you're kind of like, you're in that mindset. But for me, I was like, all right, like what does this have to do with anything? I don't care. Let's move on. I don't care about this.
Well, that's like, I liked it. Like a big thing with the story too is like they weren't side quests, but they were like, it was kind of like an ADHD person when it's like, okay, let's do this. Okay, before we do that, we got to get the helmet. Okay, before we get the helmet, we got to talk to dead people. Okay, we talked to dead people, we got to find this guy. Now we got to find this guy. And it was just every little thing. And like, that's how my brain processes everything. But like when you are playing the game, depending on how long the story is, it really is like that, where it's like, okay, you guys don't have enough gold. Literally go get a job and you have to go get a job or go rob someone and go do something. And so like, with the story, that was like super fun because you really didn't know what was coming next because it just had like little side quests into it. So I was,
I kind of went into this conversation.
Okay.
I think one of the things that was kind of annoying to me about this movie and made me not want to see it was, and also the fact that makes this terrible opening weekend even worse is, I want to know how much money they spent on their marketing campaign. Because other than the fact that I watch movies, I am not the target audience for this, obviously. That's why I didn't really enjoy it as much. But let me tell you, I can't go more than 5 minutes on the internet without seeing some sort of D&D Honor Among Thieves, branded, sponsored, ad trailer, something everywhere. It is ridiculous how they've just taken over everything for this movie.
And honestly, they had to. They wanted, because like when you think about it, like think of like the population of the world, right? Whatever. Say 30% has heard of D&D. They know it's Dungeons and Dragons, or they know D&D is a game played by nerds. That's all they know. 10% of that has played the game casually, us, and then you have like 2% that's like hardcore played the game. Not even 10% is probably that high, right? That's pretty too high. But with the marketing, like I don't think they have a target audience because this game can really go from like a Stranger Things style kids playing in the basement to like famous actors playing at some dude's house, or a 50-year-old man just in a basement, like on once every 6 months playing, whatever. You know, so it's like, I think they really like, it's genius for them because they really had to put money into it, but they did well with their marketing because if they needed to reach someone, it reached them like it did. And so I think it, I mean, yeah, like again, and with that, I'm surprised the numbers are as bad as they are.
You said it was genius. It didn't work, unfortunately.
Yeah. But also, I don't know, the target audience for this probably hasn't like, they probably don't go out too much.
Well, and the other thing though too is like, okay, so with that, like there were people, these people who were really excited for this movie. One of them was like, why did they get here so early? Literally got there 5 minutes before the movie started, but that's another story. But like, he's like, why did we get here so early? Like, this movie's been out for like a month. Like, no one's gonna be here. And everyone was like, it came out like 2 days ago. He's like, no, it came out like a month ago. Like, no, like it literally just came out. Like, even like the hardcore fans didn't even know the exact date of when the movie came out.
Which is fair. I mean, we've been seeing stuff for literally like 6 months now, so if not longer. So,
but I don't know. I almost just want to go back and look like how often they actually show the date, because I was very well aware that the movie was coming, but I almost feel like I saw so much of it that I started tuning it out and just didn't pay attention to the actual important stuff.
No, honestly, that's fair because I didn't know until like literally like I think it was a week or two ago, and I checked our podcast schedule to see what Tuesday we were going to launch on, and then backdate to the Friday before, and that's how I came up with the date. Right. I could have just Googled it, but yeah, I literally on the top of my head had no idea.
Or like or another thing that like it always baffles me in general is like when some of the loudest laughs are at like the 2 jokes that are in the trailers. 'Cause I'm like, you've heard that, especially this movie. Like I've heard that joke so many times. Yeah. But I will say one of the things that did really well, especially like with like the dead question thing, like that I've seen that clip at least 5,000 times, and I was kind of like, all right, whatever. But they actually made that entire scene. There was so much more depth to that scene.
I know. I thought it was going to be one guy awake, 5 questions, 2 questions, and that was the scene.
What next? And then some coincidence, they figured it out. But I really liked how they continued to play off of it, and they saved a lot of the best parts were not included in the trailer. And so they did do a good job at picking and choosing what they were advertising. I just saw it way too much. I was sick of it.
I feel like I didn't see too many different things. It was just all the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And I think there were like, I think it was like 2 different teasers and like then 3 technically like 3 trailers that came out that were all different. But I mean, if it's a movie that I know I'm going to go see, I literally don't care about trailers. If I've seen it once, that's enough. Like honestly, cause like I'm going to go, you don't have to like entice me more. Like, what are you going to do? Ruin it by showing too much? Like, I don't know. So normally I just don't care about the trailer. I'll just swipe past it.
I feel like that's wrong.
Why?
I feel like we discuss new trailers and things all the time, but maybe.
Well, we do, but like for example, like you were like, oh, I saw like 4 different like teasers, 4 upcoming trailers, like because this Monday, so many things came out. Yeah, but also like I saw that like Blue Beetle, trailer, the teaser. I mean, I'll probably watch the trailer once, but that's all I need. Like, I don't know. I'm not like too high for it. Even like the Spider-Verse stuff. Like I saw the first trailer that came out. Yeah, if there's a new trailer, great. But if anything, it's probably going to show a little more of what we haven't seen yet. And if anything, it could be something, which I doubt they would do it, but it could be something that we're hoping for. And then they show us now. We're like, dude, that would have been great to see in the movie. You know, like I feel like trailers, really just more or less ruin movies half the time.
No, I 100% agree.
I mean, you didn't watch any trailers for
Infinity War
and that was crazy to me, but it makes sense. Like,
this is so off topic, but like it's a fun conversation. Yeah. Like with that though, like I was almost disappointed because I feel like with Infinity War they did a really good job at not spoiling many things.
Yeah, you picked the wrong movie to try that out.
And the things that they did spoil were like, for example, like Hulk being at the Battle of Wakanda. It was like, oh my gosh, he's gonna come back, and then
he wasn't though.
He never did because it was all just a bunch of BS. Like. Or like the Battle of Wakanda being like a freaking forest, and then in the movie it's.
Yeah, I have a good tie back. I can bring this all back.
Go for it.
Okay, so
man,
Hulk,
we're swapping sides now.
So Hulk, right? Yeah. One thing I was so happy that they didn't overdo or do in a stupid way is ever since Hulk smashed Loki.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Ever since,
because I thought the same thing.
Yeah, Hulk picked up Loki in Avengers and hit him over and was like puny god, whatever. Everyone's seen it. So many shows and movies have replicated that in some way where it's almost the exact same side to side hits.
Even Marvel replicates itself.
Yes, over literally multiple times. when she was the wolf bear. I don't
The owl,
her name.
the owl
The
bear.
owl bear, yeah, wolf bear, yeah, owl bear.
Fake D&D fan.
Ah, shoot, my bad. Yeah, no, but she shifted, and yeah, she beats the big bad girl, whatever, the red wizard, and she's like hitting her in the ground. I thought it was hilarious that she was just like bang, like just smashing her into the ground. That was hilarious. Instead of just like the whole like left to right like thing. I was so glad it wasn't like the same thing. I mean, it was like the same idea, but it was just nice to not be copied. And I was like, oh, they did that. I was like, thank God, because that would have sent me over the edge. But
No, it does send me over the edge every single time I see it.
Yeah.
Like, it was funny. It was funny the one time, guys.
yeah, but that's the thing is Hulk might have ruined that, because like here's the thing, like it was probably done not as funny of a way, and not probably in as big of a movie as Avengers was, but people get hit in the ground all the time. Like, what are you gonna do? Just throw them in the wall or throw them in the sky? I don't know.
I mean, yeah.
So yeah, but no,
Yeah,
they
that's
did it well. And like I said, there were so many things in this movie that were great. That
I'm gonna ride this wave.
yeah,
I think one of the things that this movie did really, really well was it was not scared to be itself and to be original. Because I think
Yeah.
that is something that they could have easily fallen back on, and they could have failed miserably at.
yeah. And a lot of movies have done that in the past.
Yeah, constantly. And you know what? I wasn't planning on ending the segment here, but I think that's a perfect segue into our next segment, because I feel like one of the things with D&D is, like we said earlier, every campaign is completely original and unique. And honestly, I almost wonder if this movie did not have the Dungeons and Dragons label on it, if we could have had the exact movie released under
It could have
Honor
just
Among
been
Thieves,
called- exactly.
and it would have been the same movie, just not with the labeling. Would it have been more successful, less successful? I don't know. That's what we're gonna talk about next segment. So if you want to know more about our thoughts on that, and just the title of this episode, which because you watched it, how it exposes one of the biggest issues in Hollywood right now. Stay tuned for the next segment. Graham, did you know there are 6 D&D movies?
No, not until I sat down. I was so shocked, because I was like, is that a plan for 6 movies? Because I was like, that's great. I want to see this group. Bring them back. Give them a 6 movie deal. Like, that's awesome. No, that's wild. Literally, I saw the list. You have a list pulled up here, which I appreciate. This is in some depth. There's a D&D movie that came out in 2012. Like, granted, I would have been probably 11 or 12, depending on when it dropped, but like I had never heard of D&D until I was like literally an adult.
No, yeah. So I was doing some research, so in 2000 they came out with a movie called Dungeons and Dragons, and then over the next like several years they released 2 more as a trilogy. But in between those 2, they made an animated movie, and then they made another animated movie that's like a spinoff of the first animated movie, but has nothing to do with the trilogy. And then this one that just came out is a reboot of the original trilogy that they made. Apparently.
So we're probably getting some more. Probably not due to
note the terrible box office.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess there's potential for more. But yeah, I don't know. I did a little more digging into it. Like the 2 animated D&D movies, you'll notice on that list, the name Dungeons and Dragons isn't on there anywhere. I forget what the actual, you have it pulled up. I forget what the actual like titles of them were.
Well, one of them does. I mean, it's Source of Worlds, and then a Dungeons and Dragons Adventure is what it's called. But I mean, other than that, yeah, no.
Yeah, like it's its own thing. And like we were kind of talking about last segment, Dungeons and Dragons in general, the beauty of Dungeons and Dragons is the originality in every single game. Everything is entirely different.
Right.
Just talking to my friend who's making this cast maybe part of the campaign, and him telling me the ideas that he has are like, oh, like this sounds really cool. Like I would love to I'd love to witness it. I think that's why it's blown up so much.
Yeah.
Now that geek and nerd culture in general has become,
it's definitely expanded recently, yeah.
Oh, it's not like you don't get bullied for it. Now it's almost like a badge of honor. People wear it. Like now that with Stranger Things and everything, like D&D's really risen to the top.
Yeah,
and like there's so many people who, like myself, who are not interested necessarily in playing it as much as they are. Like I would love to just consume cool storytelling and improv and everything.
Yeah.
Like I listened to the Adventure Zone podcast, which was a D&D podcast, and a graphic novel that's done really well. And it's just really great storytelling in general. So the question I have for you, Graham, is like,
Hit me.
if this movie was just called Honor Among Thieves, and they maybe took out like, instead of like the specific like names of things that are like, instead of Neverwinter, it was Always Summer.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have done just
Like,
fine.
do you think it would have done just fine?
Because I mean, like, even if you keep the same idea of like a wild shape, or I think it's what's called for the shapeshifter,
sounds right.
or like you're just talking about wizards and clerics and paladins, or
Also,
instead of a paladin,
wild shape. That I heard that and I was like, what does that mean? Why don't you just call it a shapeshifter?
It's because it's like a trait. It's not like a race.
Oh no, wild shape
It's
to
like
me
a-
just makes me think like you have no control. Like you just turn into a shape randomly.
That would suck. Yeah, no, that would.
Also, another side note. Back to one of the things that just ticked me off was when the one chick was like, she was sneaking into the castle and she was trying to escape. Why did she just turn into a fly again and then fly away? She's like, I'll be an eagle. And it's like, okay, cool. That makes sense. They were shooting at her. Like she could have just turned into a fly.
I think it was just panic because she was free falling as a rat. And then she was like F, and then just turns into a bird. She's probably thinking like, what flies? Because then she crashes as a bird and she gets up. It's a deer. Like she probably wasn't.
Yeah. Why?
And here's the thing. With one thing, probably, I don't know if anyone's commented on, but probably with that is when in the game, when you have that trait, like when that is like what you are is like a shapeshifter, like a wild shape. You only get a certain amount of things you can shift into per level. So like in the beginning, like it's like only like critters and like, so you could be like a bug or like a snake, like nothing that could like actually like do harm. And then as you get bigger, owlbear, you could turn into just like anything you've seen is normally how it goes. So after a certain point, if you want to be a dragon, turn into a dragon. You get all the abilities of flying and fire breath and whatever. And so there probably wasn't, I mean, if I had to guess, like for her being like a young like wild shape or something, she probably didn't have much she could shift into. But I mean, a fly would have been just probably an easy getaway. You're metagaming.
Yeah.
Shut up, Alex.
I'm looking too deeply into things. That took us way off topic.
No, but going back to what you were saying.
yeah.
So with the movie, it would be just fine on its own. It literally would just be like kind of not like a buddy cop, but just like a little heist movie. I mean, it's a very simple. We're the good guys, kind of bad guys sometimes. There's a big bad guy. We're gonna beat him up. That's the general gist of it. And like I said, even if you kept like the wizard or turned paladin, because paladin's it's not coined, like they don't own rights to the name specifically. Like,
Right, a paladin is just like it's a normal thing.
But I mean, it could have been even dumbed down to be like a knight. Like, oh, you're a knight or an ex-knight. You left your guild or whatever. Like, it could be something like in that sense. I think it would have been just as fine. Now, definitely having the D&D name, I think has helped. I don't think it would have done I don't think it would do as well without it.
Yeah.
It's really not doing well on its like as is, but I think it would be doing worse.
But I think there is still a stigma of Dungeons and Dragons is for nerds and geeks. Like I'm not into D&D. There's also
like I can tell you, like my parents like aren't super old. My mom actually, the first time she actually heard that I was playing D&D, she was shocked because she used to play D&D in high school, which I was like, that's shocking.
I can't picture that.
I can't either. Like, yeah, I know it's wild. But like I know for a fact, even with like her previously whatever playing years ago, I mean she's not that old, but like years ago, they're not going to go see this. Like they even asked me, they're like, "What'd you think about John Wick?" Because they I think watched the first one, and they're like, "Do we need to watch the others?" I'm like, honestly, like no, you'd probably still enjoy it. Like go see, it's very action packed. And she's like, not feeling it. I don't think I could tell her. I could be like if I was like, oh, this is like a fantasy story thing. Nope. This is kind of action. Nope. The humor is kind of there. Nope. Like nothing that I could tell her, even show her from trailers, would like entice her to go see it. So there's definitely going to be some people that just are not ever going to see this movie.
Fair enough. I don't know. Like I feel like for me also, I went and Googled 2022 fantasy movies because I was trying to think back.
I feel like it's a bad idea. That's scary.
It was fine.
Okay.
Anyway, wasn't expecting that response. Anyway, I looked at 2022 fantasy movies because I was trying to think because especially growing up, like I really liked this kind of genre of thing. I liked all
like
of the medieval, Lord of the Rings, dragons and swords and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. And I was trying to think that's the last time I actually saw a big movie that was like that. And I looked up 2022 fantasy movies. and the vast majority of them were like sci-fi fantasy movies, or like fantasy in terms of like, yes, in terms of like the description of it, I guess you could consider that fantasy, but like it is not the fantasy as like the first thing I think of, which is something like D&D.
Yeah.
There wasn't a single movie like that came out last year. Other than like there was like Robin Hood, the last Fantastic Beasts came out. Like those are all that we consider fantasy movies, but those are all other IPs.
Right.
There aren't any more like original medieval kind of fantasy type movies. And I wonder if, again, without the label, if it would have done just fine if they just let the people like me who are like, oh, this looks interesting, would just kind of go do it. But also, just to take back my own point, like I feel like the vast majority of that audience is also the exact same audience who'd be into D&D.
I think if it didn't have the D&D name, it probably would have done good, because that same thing, that audience would have seen a trailer. Like, God knows they've seen a trailer due to marketing, but they probably still would have gone and seen it, and then the hype around it would have been like, oh, this was great. Like, I wish we saw like a D&D style movie. And then like D&D probably would have slapped their name on a very similar remake of it or something like that. So like, I don't know. Like, I feel like it's rare to get an original movie anymore, because everyone just reboots or IPs for really no reason. Like, I don't know.
I agree with that statement to a point, because I think there are original movies, and at least there can be. But they're all slapped on with some sort of other IP. Yeah. So I have a very small list. Okay. But D&D is a board game movie. And I think the most ridiculous thing...
I wouldn't say D&D is a board game. Is D&D a board game?
It is definitely a board game.
You're saying you don't have to have a board, though, to play it.
You don't.
You don't.
You don't.
And you don't buy it at the store in a board game box. Like if you go
to the store, what section do you go to? The board game section.
Normally, no. Normally you go to a store, it's not in the normal section.
If I go to Target, it is in the board game section. That's where I've seen it. I haven't actively looked for D&D at Target, because I'm not like...
Well, I mean, I guess it would be in the same section, but like if you're looking at the boxes and you have your like Monopoly and Clue and Yahtzee, and
it's called a tabletop game. It's a tabletop game.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fair. Okay. That's fair. I mean, you can also play it on your phones.
Tabletop.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, tabletop game. I like that. Yeah, run with
tabletop game movies, not board game movies. Yeah. Tabletop game movies are the most ridiculous thing in the world to me. I remember seeing like trailers for like Battleship, the movie, and laughing hysterically at every trailer, because like they were taking that super seriously.
When did that come out?
I don't have an exact number, but I don't know. I would say
I feel like I was
2010s.
Just like a child. Okay, yeah.
2016-ish maybe is my
maybe
that's my totally random number I'm throwing out there. But yeah, they made a Battleship movie.
Yeah. I remember seeing like trailers for it. I never saw it.
I never saw it, but like where's the story in Battleship? I don't know about you. When I play Battleship, I cheat and I just say like random letter number combination, and then someone says hit. Like there's
no cheating. That's just how you play.
No, I mean I cheat by like putting things where they're not supposed to go. Like,
okay.
I cheat and I just throw out random numbers, hoping for the best. Like there is no story in Battleship, but because it's the game. People are like, I guess they were hoping that people would come,
or just sheer curiosity.
It was a massive box office flop. From what I recall. So like it didn't work then, and it's not working now. So I don't know why they're still trying. But another example is like the Clue movie, which people do actually kind of like. And at least there I can kind of see where you can get a story from. But again, in terms of the actual game, there's no story. You're just trying to figure out, you're just trying to solve a puzzle ultimately.
Which, and like at the end of the day, like honestly, when I think about movies similar, like I feel like Knives Out too, like A Glass Onion. I feel like that was a better clue, even though it wasn't. But like movies like that, I've done a better job of like a story,
but
instead of just the clue.
But I feel like at that point, like the Clue movie in itself, it's just a murder mystery movie that they could call anything. Yeah. But they were capitalizing on the Clue IP, which in that particular instance, I don't think hurt it at all. It was just, we'll have these same kind of characters, and they might go into a ball. I mean, Clue especially is so broad, ballroom and library and stuff, like whatever. But
there's someone's house.
Right. But in some cases, I feel like it does harm the story. And I talk about this like every other week, but like the Joker movie, I can't stand it because I think it would be if they called it literally anything else and they named Joaquin Phoenix, literally anything else, I think it would be a perfectly fine movie. But because it was Joker, they had to constantly remind us, you're in Gotham City. Hey, remember the Waynes? The Waynes, they're everywhere. Oh, also, like, here's a Riddler reference. Oh, you know Commissioner Gordon, right? He's just a detective now. He's not a commissioner yet. Like,
which when you look at it though, like, I know you say that, and I do agree with that. I think it would have been fine, but also like that would have literally just been a movie about a psychopath.
Yeah,
I mean it is, but like,
I mean it still is though.
It's the Joker, so it's an okay psychopath. But like I was thinking, like. Because like you get like docuseries and stuff, like you get like Jeffrey Dahmer or like Ted Bundy movies, things like that, which like sure are like true stories like based off those people, but they're just based off that person. So you know, no matter how scary it is, like the gist of it is like it happened, whatever, get over it, don't watch it or do watch it. But like if they just like made a movie about a psychopath with like no backstory, I feel like it wouldn't do as well. So I feel like you'd have to throw Joker.
Well, exactly, like and that's I think that's what one of the biggest issue is we are taking away really great original stories and really great original movies because no one will see them because we keep being sold things that we know that we like. So we've been conditioned to only like things that we know that we like.
Well, that's the thing too, is I think I'm honestly wondering like what movie flopped so hard that studios and producers just will not greenlight original ideas. Like I feel like most of the time it's not even about using the IP for the business sake or making them more money. I feel like if anything, it's a safety net of like, hey, we're pitching this movie, but don't worry, it's a Marvel movie or it's a Sony adjacent Marvel, like whatever, but like not that in particular. But yeah, like it's just like why not do original movies?
I mean, honestly, like, I feel like even all of the Sony Spider-Man universe movies so far have been the same kind of thing. Like, I think Morbius could work just fine without being Marvel or Spider-Man or Morbius. They could have told a very similar type of story about a vampire without calling him Morbius or a guy who has like dual personality or who turns into a monster. I think it would work just fine if you didn't make it Venom and have this threat of Spider-Man lingering in the background somewhere. Because Spider-Man, remember, this is Spider-Man.
It's going to tie in somehow.
He may or may not come. Depends on if we can get the rights. I guess they have the rights, but like if they can fit that into everything else. I don't know. There's so many original stories that just aren't being told. And like, I know like for me, I'm purposely going out and trying to find those things just because I find interest in it. Like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like just going back through the episodes of the podcast, there have been so many times where I've pitched an idea to you and you've been like, that sounds stupid. I'm not interested. And every single time you've come back and you've said, I loved that movie. Yeah. Coda, for example, we never. Like,
fantastic. I would have never watched that.
Yeah, you never would have watched that. And you were like, all right, I guess I'll watch that.
Yeah.
And the only reason we did Coda was because you refused to watch Everything Everywhere All at Once. And
I regret that too, because that was great also.
Which cut to a few months later, you said was their favorite movie of the year, if not one of your favorite movies of all time.
Okay, today is...
And you're not the only one who said that.
As of recording, today's April 2nd, 2023. Alexander, my co-host, is right all the time. His movie opinion is the best ever come out with everything. No, I'm just kidding. But
I want to go that far.
No, I do agree. And like honestly, one movie that has been in the back of my mind that won't leave... What was that one movie that
Vengeance?
That was great too. Shoot. No, it like just recently came out. It's like Scottish. It's not Scottish.
Banshees of the Inisherin?
Yeah. Did you like that movie?
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah. See, I probably would have maybe liked it. I don't know. But I literally remember you're like, hey, should we do this? And I watched a trailer and I was like, that looks like the stupidest thing I could have ever watched. I was like, I don't ever want to watch that. And you're like, all right. Whatever. So we did something else. But I'm also like, I probably would have enjoyed that. But
to be fair, I didn't see that until it was nominated for an Oscar. So like,
oh, okay, shoot.
It's not like I saw it and I knew it was going to be good. Whereas like other movies like Vengeance, I went and I screened that first and then I pitched the idea.
And that movie was good.
Yeah, and you loved that movie.
Yeah. That was in my top 5 last year.
That was also in your top 5, yeah.
Yeah.
So there are so many great things out there. Yeah. It's just finding them. And also
absolutely.
And also just funding them too. Like it's hard to pitch those ideas. I wasn't planning on going here, but I am. There's this really cool. Have you heard of Legion M?
I think so.
So they make movies. It's a production company, but their whole model is they only take investors. They have open like investing, and so the idea is fans fund the movies that they make. So you can go in and for like $20, you can invest in Legion M. And then you can then make decisions. They say, all right, like here are these ideas we have. Which ones do you want to see be made? And they ask the fans what we want, and then we're giving them money, we're investing in it, and we're making the movie that we want to see. Because I feel like that's one of the biggest pieces of advice that, like, with this podcast, for example, like, the inspiration for this was there wasn't a podcast like this. I wanted a podcast like this to listen to, and there wasn't one, so
we're did it ourselves.
That's like one of the best pieces of advice I've been given is if it doesn't exist, make it yourself. And that's like what this company is doing is they're taking, they have like William Shatner and lots of other big names attached to it who are on board with everything they do. They're winning all sorts of awards, and they're changing the game in the movie industry. And the way they're doing it is by asking the people who are paying for the movie and who the movie is being made for what they actually want instead of being sold, this is going to work. Like,
that's such a good idea.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah.
Some of the movies they made are halfway decent.
Is there anything that like...
Yeah, there's one, I don't even remember what it was called, but there's one movie with Anne Hathaway and Jason Sudeikis in it. About like a big,
love that, man.
Like they go into a playground and then there's like a monster shows up in Japan and it's like the monster like is like Anne Hathaway, but like,
oh, I know what you're talking. I don't know.
I can't remember what it's called. It was a really whack movie, but like it was an enjoyable experience. And like again, you have Jason Sudeikis and Anne Hathaway, and like there were several other big names attached to it. Like these aren't just like tiny indie films. Like they aren't massive by any stretch of the imagination, but like they're actually making like some really cool stuff that's completely original, and it's being made because fans are interested and they actually want to see what's coming.
That's such a dope way to go about that. Yeah, because I mean, honestly, like there are original movies, but I mean, really, it's hard to find them or get them greenlit. Honestly, but
I mean, you said that my movie opinion is always right. I mean, proof of that not being the case is if you go look the title of our. Do you remember the title of Everything Everywhere All at Once episode? It was like a year ago. So
like, will this movie even...
So the title was The Greatest Movie That Nobody Will See.
Yeah.
And I don't like maybe like 6 weeks later, it became A24's highest grossing movie of all time. It won it won every acting category it was nominated for, won Best Picture at the Oscars.
It killed it.
Everybody loves this movie. But I genuinely didn't think that anyone would see it because it was so...
It was so bizarre. The traditional way of...
Yeah.
Releasing also, so
especially coming out, it was a multiverse movie coming up against Multiverse of Madness, a much by comparison
anticipated movie that
Multiverse of Madness is going to be way more successful because it has Marvel and Doctor Strange and all these names and things. But like, if you look at it objectively, as you can look at art like a movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once blows Doctor Strange out of the water in every category, other than visual effects maybe, but like Everything Everywhere All at Once did perfectly fine without it. Yeah. With 12 people who learned how to do all the effects by Googling it on YouTube and doing it in consumer-based softwares. Yeah. Like we need more original things is the whole point. And I'm tired of always being held down by IPs, especially like D&D. Because I feel like, I don't know, after the whole D&D controversy that happened with how they were handling rights and everything. Are you not familiar with this?
No, this is news to me.
Okay. It's since then, so a few weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, I don't remember exactly when, the company D&D said, any sort of, you have all these different people who are making D&D campaigns, like Critical Role and everything, and then they take those campaigns and then they sell them like as books or whatever so people can replicate it. And essentially what the company said was, because it's a D&D and you're using the elements and mechanics that we created, you owe us royalties on all of that. And so they basically, in one statement, destroyed the entire community that they had built, because part of what made them so successful was how open source it was and the ability to create your own versions of the game. Everyone was outraged, and so like within 24 hours they retracted it and said, okay, we'll figure out something else to do. But like, I feel like, and I don't know if that had any effect on like this movie, but holding it down to an IP restricts you a lot. Yeah. And you have to do certain things. You have to have all the cameos from people, especially with like reboots and things like Cobra Kai could have been a movie about the next generation of kids, but 5 seasons in, it's about the adults who were kids in the 80s. Like, could we have had more original, more relevant stories for a modern audience if it was about those kids versus the adults? But then there's also arguments like, oh, well, I mean, the adults are one of the target audiences because they grew up with this and they want to see Johnny and Danny fight and their struggles they're going through now. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons to it.
Yeah, I feel like more cons these days, but I don't know.
Fair enough. Graham, do you have any final thoughts on D&D, Honor Among Thieves, or just original movies?
Original movies just need to the people just need to have a little more faith, especially and I hope that does change because recently, over the past year or two, we've seen a lot of good movies, great movies come out. So I hope that obviously just keeps coming. When it comes to D&D, again, great movie. Definitely try and go see it if you can. But I hope we see more, especially with this group. I would be totally fine if we saw a whole nother story in the same set and stuff, because it kind of looked in the final battle really quick, you saw there were different groups of similar sets, and I was
right,
what if we saw someone else's story leading up to that? Not the same thing, but it's a whole world, and I would love to see. I hope we see a lot more come from this world because I feel like it'll do relatively good. Hopefully, if this does a little better, but it's a good movie overall.
You guys do a whole lot of hoping.
Yeah,
to make that happen. You said you would go see this again.
I would
just go back to the theater and see this 3 times a day for the next couple of weeks, and
I can do that.
Maybe you can give them a little a little boost.
Yeah, I'll try.
You can.
I'll fund the next movie.
Yeah, you can say the D&D movie. I thought D&D Honor Among Thieves was just fine. If that's something you're into, or you are even mildly interested, it's a good time. I'm sure you'll enjoy yourself. I think I made my opinions on original movies pretty clear. I want more of them. They are always my favorite movies. Even though I do like, Marvel and everything, I will always there's so many great stories that seem weird or bizarre in trailers, and you watch them and you realize they're actually really, really cool.
Yeah.
And I think we should pay more attention to those and give those a little more money so we get more of them. And that's my spiel. You've been listening to the Popcorn Hangover. We've been discussing Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. I'm Alex. That is Graham. What were your thoughts on D&D Honor Among Thieves? Let us know on all the things: Instagram, patreon.com/popcorn hangover, and also TikTok, because I forgot that one. Next week's teaser, based on a teaser that was released for this movie, who are you going to call? That's my really bad
right.
off the top of my head.
All right.
Graham loves that one. That's all I got for you.
Peace.